Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at a RT international report that claims that a man from the US that goes by the name of Boneface was sent to Ukraine by the CIA. Also, his involvement in the Azov battalion. Let's get into it.
The presence of neo-Nazis in Ukraine is nothing to be concerned about, according to mainstream outlets in the US, who have been quick to try to label the problem as nothing more than Russian propaganda, despite reporting on it themselves just a few years ago. But what would they say?
Okay, her opening statement that says that the Western media is saying there's nothing to be seen here. There's no neo-Nazis here. It's just a figment of Russia's imagination. But she also makes the claim that they were saying that there was neo-Nazis in Ukraine. So let's have a look at her statements. This is a Google search of neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And we come up with Russia ramps up accusations of neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Russia says Israel supports Ukrainian neo-Nazis. Right-wing Azov battalion emerges as a controversial. Far-right battalion has a key role in Ukraine resistance. How Russia uses neo-Nazi groups to spread chaos. All right. Now, these reports are from the Voice of America, CNN, Washington Post, Al Jazeera, Wall Street Journal, all pointing to the fact that Russia is using neo-Nazis as a propaganda tool, that there is no neo-Nazis in Ukraine, that it is all a figment of Russia's imagination. Let's have a look at the same Google search, but we put a filter in of January the 1st, 2010 to January the 1st, 2020. This is before the Russian special operation in Ukraine started in February the 24th, 25th of 2022. We come up with a totally different set of results. Neo-Nazis threat in new Ukraine. Ukraine neo-Nazi problems. US is arming neo-Nazis in Ukraine. From neo-Nazi to militant, the foreign fighters in Ukraine. Far-right group threatens to overthrow Ukraine. Now, these are not Russian organizations that are saying this. This is the BBC, ABC in Australia, Max Blumenfeld in America, Reuters, and BBC again. Hang on a minute. They're telling us now there's no neo-Nazis in Ukraine. But before Russia launched its special operation, and in their words, to denazify Ukraine, they were telling us, the West and media, mainstream media, was telling us that Ukraine was full of neo-Nazis and that they threatened the sovereignty of Ukraine. Let's have a bit of a deeper look into this. This is the BBC Panorama website, and they did, in 2012, they did a report of stadiums of hate, and it was on the upcoming Euro 2012 soccer or football that was going to be held in Poland and Ukraine. Now, interesting enough, it's not there. Sorry, this episode is not currently available. Why? Why have they pulled it? Let's have a look. Thanks to Max Blumenfeld, he had it on his Twitter feed, which linked to Daily Motion. Now, I will put the links down below And before we get into this, this is a BBC Panorama documentary. I don't want to infringe copyright, so I'll only be looking at it and we're going to be critiquing it. We're not taking it out of context. And for transparency, I agree with what the reporter has said throughout the documentary. So let's have a quick look at it. I've broken it up into different bits. Here's at the start.
Football kicks off.
Yeah. And we've got the Nazi salute. So this is in, I believe, Poland, because he looks in both Poland and in Ukraine. So first up, we've already got people in the crowd giving the Nazi salute. Not one or two, but a whole stadium full of them. We then go on to here. Now, this is in the stands, and it's hey, hey, who's not jumping as a Jew? Now, interesting enough, this is in 2012, 2 years before Maidan. Now, in Maidan, the movement there was getting the crowd revved up by chanting, hey, hey, who's not jumping is a Russian. And it's quite... I find it bizarre that 2 years before they were using these techniques in the football, and 2 years later at the Maidan, right, which overthrew the government, they were using it, but using it and not jumping is a Russian. So let's have a quick look. Yeah, jump, and they're all skinheads. They're all neo-Nazis. Then they go on to state that death to the Jew whore. So obviously they have an unhealthy dislike for Jews, which is that one there. Yes. Now we go on. This is the head. Now this gentleman is the reporter is with a gentleman who's involved with a right-wing organisation and a soccer fan. So let's have a quick look. So,
any cops, any government guys?
They don't want cops or government guys near their place. No. And we can see this is in Ukraine. So, yeah. He's now talking about who they don't like in their football teams.
Does it annoy you if a black player ends up playing for your team?
Oh, yeah. We don't like black people. Yeah. No. Fans, hooligans, and other people in the stadiums, they don't like black people. They're not like us. So, interesting, isn't it? We move on. What is in this club? Because he's in a club. It's a clubhouse that's hidden in a market so that the police and authorities can't find them.
It was a shrine to far-right extremism.
Far-right extremism. Now, this is what the BBC... I'm not saying this. This is what the BBC reporter is reporting on. Now, it goes back to why has the BBC pulled this report? That's the question. But it's interesting.
Crosses, swastikas, and white power symbols.
Yeah, white power symbols, swastikas, everything.
There's also an unhealthy obsession with Nazi Germany.
Yeah, Nazi Germany. Look at this. Adolf Hitler. Yeah, they carry around pictures of Adolf Hitler. It's quite bizarre what we're watching here. And this is in 2012. Again, by the BBC. Not by the Russian media. This is by the BBC. So then we move on. This gentleman, he talks about his Nazi affiliations or thoughts.
Are you a Nazi?
No, he's not a Nazi. No. He just doesn't like black people or anyone that's not like him. So interesting.
It's not neo-Nazi. No.
Yeah, no.
Some aspects, yes.
Yeah, some aspects. Well, I'm sorry. There's no aspects of Nazi ideology that are good, but he thinks there are. So, you know, the reporter's doing the right thing. The reporter from BBC is he's asking the hard questions. He's a real reporter. He's out there. He's not filtering it. He's asking the hard questions, which is what journalists should be doing. Really, I commend him.
Some positive aspects, of course.
Some positive aspects, yeah, because Germany would not be Germany without Adolf Hitler. You know, you can't make this stuff up, can you? And again, the journalist, the reporter I have to commend him because he is asking all the right questions. He's trying to find out, he's being an investigator. And I question again why the BBC has pulled this. Now, this is that same gentleman we just saw. He's involved with cleaning out migrants. So let's have a look.
Vadim is a recruiter for a group called Patriot of Ukraine.
Okay, he's a recruiter. He's a recruiter. He's Patriot of Ukraine. So he's a recruiter, and Patriot of Ukraine comes up later in another interview that we watch later. But yeah, they're going around and they're getting rid of migrants.
This is a Patriot video. Yep. They claim to be rounding up illegal immigrants.
Yeah, illegal immigrants. They're rounding them up and getting rid of them.
That they want deported.
Yeah, get them out.
One race, one nation.
One fatherland. All right, one race, one nation, one fatherland. Is that... Hang on a minute. I think I heard that in the 1930s and the 1940s. But, you know, I could be wrong. And this is in Ukraine. And this is by the BBC, which have now deleted the video.
Fatherland.
Yep.
We must be preparing for... sometimes we think it's civil war.
Okay, now we get into the guts of it. He's preparing for civil war. 2 years before Maidan. Now, this is at one of their training grounds. Now, Patriot of Ukraine, and they've got training grounds. Now, reminder, this is 2012, so Azov and them have not actually been formed yet. These are small splinter groups that then end up forming into it. You know, Azov and them really came to fruition during the Maidan, which was in 2014. So let's have a look.
We are learning to shoot, and we are learning tactical combat.
Yeah, learning to shoot and learning tactical combat so we can go to the football and enjoy ourselves. You know, this is, you know, where else but in Ukraine? You know, I'm sorry, but you got to laugh at it because we saw it coming. Everyone saw it coming. And no one did anything about it until Russia's special operations. Let's keep going.
And well, military preparation. And we can take all this fight training onto the streets.
Take the fight onto the streets.
I can also add...
here we go.
My face is hidden. That these skills have already been used on the streets.
He's already used the skills on the streets. What happened in the Maidan? You had people killing police. It's interesting, isn't it? So that was the BBC interview. So up to now, our reporter has been very accurate. What was being said by Western media, that there was neo-Nazis in Ukraine, is not being said now. They've switched. So she's dead right. The accurate report so far is accurate. Let's move on.
Say if one of those nationalists was an American citizen and if he claimed that he was sent to Ukraine by the CIA. Well, that's the case with Kent McLellan, who prefers to go by his nickname Boneface.
You know, there's a lot of hype about the FBI sending me over there, but that's not the FBI that does that. It was Central Intelligence that got me involved in that.
Now, that is a serious claim, and while the CIA has yet to publicly respond, McLellan attempted to take back his statement, insisting he had been misunderstood just one day after the interview. So was it a coincidence, or did he just get a phone call from the right people? Well, a closer...
Okay, Now, her next statement that she makes, the next accusation is, we saw the gentleman Boneface where he claimed that it's the CIA sent him. And she claims that he changed his interview a day later. Now, let's have a look at Mr. Boneface here. This is his YouTube channel. Now, this is an original, so 5 days ago, but it's in Ukrainian. It's not in English. And you're free to look at this, Boneface, just YouTube and Google Boneface. This is now his new one. Now, it's just 52 seconds. Let's have a look at this one and watch the lip sync.
At the time being, I was Combat 18. We share content back and forth between me and the Missile Opening Division. That's how I got involved with them. A lot of people think I went over there due to the FBI, but that's not true. If anybody, that would have been the CIA that would have done that. But no, we actually had to negotiate and arrange everything out of our own pockets for the most.
Okay, so now he's voiced over. I had to voice over my own interview due to inaccuracies. Right. Okay, that's what he claims. So the reporter is right. He made a statement and then he retracted it and changed it after he said that the CIA was involved. Let's move on.
Look at his neo-Nazi career sheds more light on those carelessly spoken words about the CIA. McLellan is a 32-year-old man from Florida whose interest in Nazi ideology reportedly began when he was a teenager. His criminal record started in 2010 when he was 18, and it ranges from vandalism to battery involving immigrants. He was also among members from the white supremacist organization American Front who were arrested by the FBI in 2012. And it was those early run-ins with the law that appeared to make McLellan even more radical as he began to accumulate numerous tattoos that include Nazi symbols and would eventually cover his entire face. A former member of Ukraine's security services claims it was in 2014 that McLellan made his first trip to Ukraine, where he worked with the neo-Nazi group Right Sector during the Western-backed Maidan coup.
Okay, we'll stop it there for a minute. Now, she's made some statements that he's got a colourful past. So let's have a look at his colourful past. We have a report from WF TV. Now, this is 2012. A 22-year-old man pleaded guilty to paramilitary training, an alleged white supremacy group. Kent McLellan, yep, so he's a skinhead, so that's the gentleman there. Now, he goes on down here. Channel 9's reporter asks him about the SS bolts tattooed on his face. That doesn't promote violence, she asked. No. That's just a military unit in the German army. So obviously, Mr. McLellan, Mr. Boneface, just likes the SS bolts, and it's just, it's just a German unit. When asked if he admitted that he was a racist, no, racialist. He's not a racist. He's a racialist. So he just likes to change the narrative of what he is. The same thing from CNN. Mr. McLellan, paramilitary training, is sentenced to 4 years probation. We then go into Raw Story, and here is, this is the reporter from RT talks about the lost boys of Ukraine. And this is the story of the Lost Boys of Ukraine, talking about how they defend Ukraine, etc., etc. And here's our friend Kent here before he had all these tattoos. This is in 2015. Kent McLellan, 2015, yep, with a Nazi flag. And then this is the Florida Department of Corrections. That must be in 2016. And he's talking about the right sector in Ukraine, which is a neo-Nazi militia or group. The same thing in this one, just talking about exactly the same thing, the boys of Ukraine, the lost boys of Ukraine. And here we find his inside prison. He was trafficking in amphetamines, 28 grams, I believe, and he got sentenced to 4 years, 1 month, and 24 days. That was his sentence. So that was in 2017. So we're looking at 2021. So yeah, has been in jail. So the reporter from RT, again, is accurate. Let's move on.
Nationalist scene over here in the United States has never had it put together. You know what I mean? It's totally different than what Ukraine has going on. I was attracted to it.
He was also mentioned in a 2020 report from a local North Carolina newspaper titled The Lost Boys of Ukraine, which looked at how American white supremacists were attracted to the growing neo-Nazi movement there. The report specifically noted that McLellan, who was given internet access for good behavior during his sentence in 2016, openly claimed he was working with the right sector on foreign recruitment while in prison. Now, you may be wondering how and why a man who had been in and out of prison for years made his trips to Ukraine and back so freely. Well, that's something the CIA just happens to be notoriously known for being very helpful with. He has also said that he wasn't the only American involved.
Okay. Now, she's just made a statement where she says that the CIA is notoriously good at getting people to be able to go overseas. Now, it's a statement. She doesn't give any evidence, so it's only an opinion. Now, if we look at that opinion, we could say, well, how did he get to Ukraine? He's been in jail. How is he able to fly? So it's possibly to be true, but again, it is only an opinion. I could say the same thing about the FSB being able to get people to move around the world. I could say the same thing about the MI5. I could say the same thing about Mossad. So, you know, even though it's an opinion, it's probably more correct than not, but it is still only an opinion.
And that there were several other English speakers like himself who came together to help form the infamous Azov Battalion in 2014.
Particularly when the Azov Battalion, back then formed, Unit 3 was all English speakers. A lot of people from Norway, Finland, things like that. And, of course, Americans.
So just how prevalent is the neo-Nazi ideology in the U.S.? Well, in some cases, it appears to be hiding in plain sight, with dozens of far-right nationalist bands and artists streaming on Spotify until at least 2017. Oh, and that includes the artist known as Boneface, who prefers to share both his face full of tattoos and his Nazi-themed musical stylings on SoundCloud. A story...
Okay, SoundCloud. Let's have a look. So she refers to SoundCloud. There he is, Boneface. He's on SoundCloud. You can see the Iron Cross, the SWAT sticker, and the SS bolts. I'm not a music person, so let's have a listen and see what he does.
Would catch you, miss a couple of weeks of work. I don't have anything here or back when. For anyone who used to be something. If you ain't now, you're nothing. You ain't unforgiven, you're forgotten. If you ever cover it up, I hope you're...
Okay, I don't find it music, but that's my generation. I'm not going to comment on his music. I'm not a musical person, so it's yeah. Have a look for yourself. But he's on SoundCloud, yes, showing his tattoos, yes, with neo-Nazi symbols, yes. So she's accurate in what she says. We also have Mr. Boneface here in Ukraine.
Not really quite used to Slava Ukraini. Boneface here. I'm not much of a, not really quite used to doing the webcam thing, but it's worth a shot, So I'd like to apologize ahead of time for any sort of inaccuracies or anything. Slava Ukraini.
Okay, so this is Mr. Boneface. He's obviously in Ukraine. We know that because he's got the Azov flag behind him, and he's trying to connect with his Ukrainian fans, so to speak. We can then
direct from London's West End, Joseph and the amazing Technicolor.
We'll get rid of that. Now, we've looked at Western media, and now we're going to have a look at the Ukrainian media. Now, this is December the 15th, 2014. The gentleman who does most of the talking is a gentleman from an organization called Euro-Atlantic Committee, one of those Western NGOs. And he's trying to deflect anything from neo-Nazi. Just have a watch at how he talks. Oh, by the way, they're discussing the elections. This is around the time of the elections after the Maidan, the new elections, and who's going to be in parliament.
The Azov battalion, it has to be said, probably not the whole battalion, or it's now a detachment, it's now in the National Guard as a detachment, is not neo-Nazi. That I don't want to say this, but a few people who did build up these battalion were or are biological racists, and then what...
He's searching for words. They're biological racists. They're not neo-Nazis. They're biological racists. They just don't like you unless you're one of them. It's bizarre what he just said. And, let's move on.
What often happens is that the journalists come and they want to talk about the volunteer battalions. They go to Azov and then they report this as something typical of the volunteer battalions, which is not true. I mean...
Okay, then the volunteer battalions are not typically biological racists. It's interesting because we have Azov, we have Kraken, we have Ada, we have Right Sector. We have all these different little splinter groups, and they're all right-wing affiliated, and he's saying, no, it's not true. I should critique this bloke because I don't know. I don't know how he's not smiling. But anyway, let's move on.
There are also other nationalist battalions who have a sort of nationalist ideology, but the Azov is really peculiar because of these biological racism again.
Biological racism. He keeps going on about biological racism, but they're not Nazis. They're not neo-Nazis.
Of some of the leaders.
Yeah.
So Biletsky has entered the parliament. There's another man called Ihor Masachuk who has entered the...
Right Sector. This bloke's really neo-Nazi. Let's keep moving.
The Verkhovna Rada on the list of the Radical Party of Oleg Lyashko. With Vadim Troyan, it's more complicated because he's sort of denying his past in a
So this bloke's denying his past of what he was involved in.
Well, he has no links to Patriot of Ukraine, which was...
Well, he used to have...
So we've got this patriot of Ukraine. Remember the soccer fan who was removing the illegal immigrants and protecting the fatherland? Patriot of Ukraine. Strange how that comes back up. This is 2 years later. This is just after the Maidan.
And there were statements of him that he does not support this ideology, and it was some time ago.
He didn't support the ideology, not now. So he's tried to distance himself from it. Let's see what he has to say.
But he also comes from the Azov, so we don't know what his...
He also comes from the Azov, and he quickly goes through that. He doesn't want to talk about it. This bloke is a classic liar. He really is. And the reporter's just sitting there letting him go for it.
Views are actually, but he has this sort of somewhat questionable past in the Patriot of Ukraine in an earlier phase of
Patriot of Ukraine. Okay, interesting little piece where they try and change the narrative about what these people, what their background is, what the ideologies are. So interesting. We can look at some other examples. The Western media at the moment. This is Monash University, which a PhD candidate said that the Azov aren't that bad. They're just, people call them neo-Nazis, but they're not that. They're just freedom fighters. It's the Western narrative. We have Wikipedia, which has been altered. When I first looked at it a while ago, when the special operation started, it referred to the American government giving Azov funds until 2018. It does still say that they are neo-Nazi underpinning and far-right groups, neo-Nazi ideology. They've pushed their logos and what they stand for, the Wolfsangel, which is this part here, and the black sun, which is this circle at the back here. So this has been highly altered, and of course Wikipedia, yes, you can't trust it. It's just it's good for reference and to find some bits and pieces, then research whether what they're saying is true or whether it isn't. So it's always a good place to have a look at. Finally, we're going to go into now this is a documentary about a girl who's in the the Azov battalion. She's a educator or something. And let's just have a look at them.
Ukraine above all, death to our enemies.
Yes, we're at a rally. Death to our enemies. Ukraine above all, death to our enemies. Not a good thing to be putting at a protest. Anyway.
The Azov movement holding a protest march outside the Justice Building in Kiev, calling for the dismissal of corrupt judges.
Yeah, calling for the dismissal of... look, I've got no problem with that. We shouldn't be saying death to everyone outside Ukraine, but, having a protest against corrupt judges, if there's corrupt judges or you think they're corrupt, protests are fine, as long as they're peaceful. Let's keep going.
Among the protesters is 24-year-old Lida Piazzela, who joined Azov relatively recently. She was attracted by the movement's aggressive stance in its fight for political goals.
Okay, so this girl, this 23-year-old, was attracted by their aggressive political stance while they cut off hands of dummies, of course, yeah.
Lida is from Donetsk, but fled to Kiev when the war broke out in 2014.
She was from Donetsk, so she was from the Donbass. And then fled to Kiev. Now, why?
She had a patriotic upbringing and was first introduced to Azov while at a youth vacation camp.
Okay, so she's been going to youth vacation camps to be indoctrinated into the Azov mindset, and she's got a patriot upbringing. So we'll move on a little bit. We then look at she's at the Azov training camp now. She works there with kids or something.
The chants glorify their race and celebrate the call of blood.
The call of blood, yeah, they've got a great, some great chants they've got going.
The new arrivals go through their first exercise drills on this training ground in Kiev. Azov has a fighting force of around 1,500 men.
Yep. Okay.
Fascist symbols also previously used by the Nazis, such as the black sun, are everywhere you look.
Okay. Good reporting. She's acknowledging that there's Nazi symbols everywhere, like the black sun, which you can see on this table. Now, interesting enough, what this young lady, how she explains these symbols.
Lida isn't bothered, insisting the icons are actually a lot older.
They're just older. They're ancient symbols, and they may be. But let's keep moving on.
Where did they get those symbols from in the 1940s? They weren't all new. Sometimes it's easier to adopt something that already exists.
Okay. The Nazis just adopted them, and we're just adopting them.
An exercise in being economical with the truth.
And I love what the reporter says, an exercise in being economical with the truth. So she acknowledges that the girl didn't answer the question. She was given she'd already been worded up to what to say if asked about the symbols. They're just a symbol. We're just using them, but we're not using them because the Nazis used them. Well, why did you take two Nazi symbols? Why did you take one Nazi symbol and one Buddhist symbol? Nothing sort of adds up. It's just, they don't want to admit they're Nazis. They don't want to admit they're racists. The hooligan, the bloke back, he admitted he doesn't like blacks or anyone that's not like him. So I'll give him credit that he admits what he is. But he stopped short of going all the way and saying, yes, I'm a Nazi. Anyway, so let's go back to our critique of the Russian interview. Let's just finish it off.
That comes with more questions than answers, including whether the CIA was as involved as the man said they were, and how many similar cases are out there of American neo-Nazis visiting Ukraine to learn firsthand before returning home to the U.S., where they can continue to recruit freely.
Okay. To finish off this critique, the report was very accurate. There was one opinion piece about the CIA, and the rest of it was very well researched and very, very accurate. Now, whether you like the Russian media or you don't like the Russian media, you've got to give it to them that they reported this very accurately. And that's what we should have. As journalists, we should be reporting accurate information. The days of highly likely we got information from sources, unknown sources, or sources that can't be named, they're over. If a media organization starts telling you that they've got reports from unknown sources or secret sources or whatever, they can't be trusted. That's the bottom line. Unless they want to be open about who is telling them what and backing it up with real evidence, factual evidence, they can't be trusted. Now, the Western media at the moment is saying that RT International is a Russian propaganda channel ran by the Kremlin. Now, the facts are that RT International is funded by the Russian government. But hang on a minute. So are networks in America. And so is the BBC. the ABC in Australia, and I think it's PBS in America. You know, they're all funded by governments, but no one mentions them. You know, there's no difference. You can't argue that one is different to the other. If they're funded, they're funded. So, you know, that narrative is falling apart very, very quickly. And it's not about who funds it, it's what's in the material. And in this case, I give her a 9 out of 10. I only take 1 mark off because she made an opinion about the CIA. So anyone who wants to comment, by all means, leave a comment, but be constructive, be objective. And if you have any reports you want me to critique, I would love to hear from you. Until next time, have a lovely day. Hope you and your family stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.